It's Win at Home Wednesday, and I'm fired up. It's actually babysitting day for me. My grandson, Isaiah, every Wednesday we get to hang out in the evening, and so tonight I'm going to be hanging out with him. I'm fired up about that. Babysitting duty tonight. We are up to our eyeballs in grandbabies lately. We had 2 new granddaughters within 13 days last couple weeks, so it's been a lot of fun as I think about what's going on in our family. But there have been some times over the last 3 weeks where things have not just been all joy and babies coming home and all that kind of stuff. There have been some hard stuff. One of those babies, there was like some things that were kind of scary there, and everybody's home now and doing great. But a couple days in the NICU, and I mean it was a kind of a little bit of a wild time, and it reminded me of just how often hard things come up. We've been talking about hard things. We talked about it Monday in our Win at Work episode where we recognize that if we're not careful, that the dreams of our teams will die, and even the dreams of our own hearts will die if we're not careful. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about hard times at home. And so welcome to Chasing Greatness. I know that's a kind of a positive intro there, but I'm fired up about this. I think it's going to be really good for us to just regain some perspective today if things are hard for you in one of these areas of life. Thanks for downloading. Thanks for sharing with your friends. We're on YouTube and Spotify and iTunes and all those places where you get your podcasts. You can watch video or listen. But if you know somebody who's got something going on hard at home right now, maybe this would be an encouragement to them. And I would just encourage you to share with them. Hit that share button. And if you've not commented or left a review, we'd love for you to do that. That's one of the ways you can help us continue to grow. So today I want us to think a little bit about some of the problems that we face at home. And I'll just name a couple of them. If you're married, you know that your marriage sometimes becomes a problem. And typically, for me, I'm the problem if there's a problem. Somebody told me one time, if there's a problem with this person and a problem with this person and a problem with this person, then you're usually the problem. And that may or may not be true for you, but a lot of times the people around me would tell you that, yeah, he's the problem here. And I'm trying not to be. You've heard me say before, I'm trying to live my life in such a way that the people who know me the best can literally love me the most and like me. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. Not just love me, but like me. And that's so hard because so many leaders, the people who know them the best, that's where they let their hair down and kind of, they kind of lose it there at home sometimes. And if you're not careful, the people who know you the best will respect you the least. And so that's kind of the spirit of this is we want to have a family life, a marriage. If you're married, if you're not married, this stuff will really work in your relationships as well. If you're a parent, that might be where your problems feel like they are right now. And I want to just remind you today that there are seasons to life. So I mentioned the grandbabies. I'm watching my daughters have these babies. I mean, like I wasn't in the room or anything, but we're just kind of following this, seeing the pictures, having the phone calls, the FaceTimes, the visits. We flew to Chicago and saw one, and then got to go to Chattanooga and meet the other little girl, and that's been great. But it was interesting. My wife and I were talking about this afterwards. It's exhausting to watch. It's exhausting to watch brand new parents, first babies. They're not sleeping a lot. They're not, it's just the babies are all consuming when they're little. And now my babies are not all consuming. They're all grown and gone and thankfully off the payroll. Actually, I'm not sure they ever get off the payroll. That's what one of my buddies said. He's like, they never get off the payroll. And that's probably not, that probably is a true statement, but it's a lot less expensive than it felt like at one point. And so they're all married now, all 4 of our daughters. And, we got these little grandkids and son-in-laws, and we're in a different season than we were when I remember when we brought our first daughter home. It was kind of shocking. In fact, when the nurse said, you got to take her home after a couple of days, the first couple of days felt pretty easy to me, not so much for my wife, but we were all doing fine until they said, you got to take her home. And that felt really challenging. And I remember those sleepless nights and the babies crying, and you're trying to learn how to, change them and take care of them and feed them and keep them alive for a couple of days. So you get to the pediatrician and they kind of tell you what to do next. And you got to keep them alive for a week and then 2 weeks. And then you get to a month and you sort of feel like you're rolling a little bit at some point. But when you have a little child, Parenting is exhausting. It's exhausting. It's very physical when they are under 5. Let's think about it that way. And maybe until they're under 10, you get to a point where they're able to dress themselves and they can go to the bathroom on their own. They can feed themselves. It's not quite as physical, and it's not quite as exhausting when they start sleeping through the night. In fact, kids, they need to sleep a lot. And so they get to a point where they sleep more than the parents. That's a good thing when you can get to that spot and you get to sleep again. But parenting, what I notice seasonally, it becomes more emotional as they get older. So especially if you have daughters, I would say it becomes more emotional because you're worried about what's going to happen to them when they go out of here, and are they ready, and all this stuff. So it goes from physical to emotional, and now we're at a spot where it's just fun. I mean, it's so fun. These little grandkids are around, and we're getting to watch that, and you get to watch your kids as they get older. And just to see them build their own families, all that kind of stuff. It's just a different season. And as you think about your issues right now, your problems, maybe your problems at home, you got something going on financially, or you got something going on physically. These are kind of life problems. We're going to talk about life on Friday, and I've got a passage from the Bible I'm going to share with you. I think it's going to give you some different perspective here on Friday. I hope you'll join us for that. But as you think about things, it goes from physical to emotional. There are seasons in your marriage as well. When you're first married, there's a honeymoon phase, right? And then things are great. And then things get kind of hard and things get harder. And, we're pushing 35 years here. And I'm just telling you, it's been like a little roller coaster, maybe like a big roller coaster at times as you think about trying to have a long-term relationship with someone. There's just these seasons. And so today I want to give you 3 P's, 3 words that start with P. I didn't come up with them. There's a well-known psychologist, Martin Seligman, who talks about our problems in these 3 ways, and I think they'll help you as you think about what's going on in your life. So the first word is what he calls personalization. We face a problem and we don't think about what caused it, but we sometimes just internalize it and say the problem is. I'm facing the problem, so the problem must be my fault, and it may or may not be my fault. I mean, sometimes my problems are my fault, but sometimes I have problems that I'm up against, or circumstances I'm up against that are that are not my fault. They're just things beyond my control. And yet, if I'm not careful, I'll personalize those things, and I'll think because my life is hard, that there must be some flaw with me. And there are flaws with me, but my life being hard is not as a result of there being things wrong with me personally. If you think about it that way, again, I bring some of the stuff on myself. But life is going to be hard whether you are making bad decisions or not. If you make bad decisions, it gets a lot harder, but life is going to be hard. And I've told people for years that you're either in something hard, you're going into something hard, or you're coming out of something hard. Hard is going to be a part of your life, especially if you're a leader. And I want to just remind you today that you don't need to personalize everything in your life that feels hard. Here's the second one of Martin's P's, is he says that we have a tendency to make our problems not just personalized, but we make them pervasive. In fact, he says that if we're not careful, we will let those problems spill over into every area of our life. We'll think because life is hard in this area, then all of my life is hard, and that's not true. Sometimes we have an area of our life that things are difficult, and if we're aware of that. We can stay focused on what's hard, and we can not allow it to spill over into every other area. But if we're not really wise and we're not thinking correctly, we'll let those problems not just affect one area, but we'll let it become pervasive, and we'll think our life is terrible in all these areas, or we'll make our life worse in areas because we allow our problems to spill over from one area to another. So you may be in a place right now where you've got these problems, that you're facing them, and you've lost sight of the fact that it's not every area of your life that's a problem. It's just this one area. And if you can stay focused on that, you got a chance to bring that to the ground and just keep everything else the way it needs to be. I will say this, in my family life, I've noticed through the years, and I've talked to other leaders about this, I have a tendency to find myself in one area of life, things feel like they're going really well. I'll even go broader than home here for just a second. So things might be really working at work, and then my marriage may be struggling. It's not so great. Or maybe my marriage is really great, but things aren't so great with one of my kids. Maybe not even all my kids. Again, I don't want it to be pervasive because I got a problem with one kid. I feel like I'm a bad parent, or I have bad kids. I mean, it's so easy to let this spill over. Or maybe financially things are going well, or maybe financially things are hard, and then physically things are okay. And so you just have all these places. And I've got a buddy of mine who he's a really wise leader. He told me one time that he said, balance is learning to live in the center of the tension. There's always going to be tension. You're never going to have every area of your life the way you want it. But if you've got a problem in one area, let's don't let that become pervasive and cloud all these other relationships and things that we have going on. So that's dangerous if we do that. And then Seligman's third P is permanence. We have a tendency to think if something's bad, it's going to always be bad. And I want to remind you that's just not true. It's so easy to just bury ourselves in our own little pity party that life is hard and my life is always hard. And the next thing you know, we've built this negative narrative in our mind, and it's really hard to move forward. It gets us emotionally, relationally, spiritually stuck. I mean, we can get in a bad place if we're not careful. And so I want you to think about your problems, what you got going on right now. If you've got some places in your life where there are struggles, don't personalize that unless you should. I mean, if there's something you've done to cause it, own that, apologize, make that right. But if there's some things that are going on that are challenges in your life that you have no control over, don't personalize that. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. Secondly, it's not pervasive. It's probably not pervasive. Not every area of your life is affected unless you let it be affected. And so it was a good reminder when I read this article from him that talked about that. It was just a good reminder. I don't need to let one issue become an issue everywhere. And then finally, this idea of permanence, I think is so powerful to think about. It's this too shall pass, right? There are seasons, and some seasons are going to be hard and some seasons are going to be easy. And even if you have an easy season right now, just buckle down. It's going to get hard again. You're going to need wisdom to handle the things that are going to happen in your life at home. If you really want to be great, you've got to understand that these problems that you're facing, these challenges that you're up against are not personal, they're not pervasive, and they're ultimately not permanent. And if you can really live there, and I'll give another P, if you can have the right perspective about those things that you're facing, that you're up against, I think you really can win at home. And I think that's really important. You've heard me say this almost every week. If you win at work and you lose at home, I think you still lose. And so one of the ways we lose is we don't think correctly about the things that we're up against. We make them bigger than they are. We make them longer than they are, and we make them broader than they are. And so let's see if we can focus on maintaining that perspective this week. I think if we really can have a great family life. It can be better maybe than it's ever been before if you'll really think through this. Maybe somebody needs to hear this, needs to be reminded of their what's true in their life as well, and help them regain their perspective. You could be a big help in that. Help us continue to spread the word, and we're really grateful for all you're doing out there. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your reviews, all that stuff, really helping us grow things here. Let's keep chasing greatness. Let's keep helping the people around us be great as well. I think if we can feel really good about that. Ultimately, we can win at home. Let's go do that. Love you guys. I'll see you on Friday.